Hello and welcome to the Total Clarity Podcast. I'm Mike Farley.
And I'm Jessie Hyatt, and this is our 41st of 52 weeks of walking.
That's right. This week we're walking around the two Botanic Gardens of Brooklyn and Queens.
Yeah, and it's been a pretty week. We've seen a lot of flowers, although not all of them are in bloom yet. And we have some special news about us to start off this week's episode because something exciting happened today on our walk.
That's right. Something exciting happened on our walk, and I guess we didn't decide who was going to say what it actually was.
We didn't plan
No. Jessie and I, after 7+ years of dating, are officially engaged.
Yay!
That's right. So we will get to the Botanic Garden portion of our week, but we thought that we would bring the energy in the first part because we wanted to be able to tell not only the story of how the day went down, because it actually happened today, but also how the acquisition of the ring went down.
Right.
Because that's something that we've known for a few months. And when I say we, Jessie and I picked out the ring together.
That's right. So
we actually had a story about that, but we haven't been able to share it with anybody. And we were excited to share it when we could.
Yeah. So Mike was walking on his own one day in Astoria and came home and said, "Oh, I found this really cool shop. We should go together." And so we went to this shop, and that was, when did we go? On New Year's Day.
New Year's Eve. We went on New Year's Eve of this year. So I don't know when that was, week 28 or something of our walk, something like that.
Yeah, it was the same. Well, I'm sure we would have talked about that walk. We just didn't mention this detail. But it was the New Year's Eve when we started in the afternoon and we walked all day until like 3 in the morning.
That's right. Yeah.
And so we went to Astoria on New Year's Eve, and the name of the shop is Shiny's S&S Jewelry Store.
Yeah. It says Shiny's on the awning and S&S Jewelers online.
Yeah.
And it's a really great store. Neither Jessie or I have any particular affinity to visit jewelry stores. I don't generally like it because I feel like, I need to buy something or, the salespeople are just not generally the type of, personality that really meshes with me.
Yeah, and I guess I don't really go into jewelry stores very often because, I don't wear a ton of jewelry, and if I do, it's something that I'll wear over and over. I don't really mix it up very often, so I just don't often have a reason to buy jewelry. But this one was really cool. It was run by these really nice people, and seems like they had been, I think he even said they had been there for 30+ years or something.
Yeah.
A long time. And almost all of the jewelry that they were selling was estate jewelry or vintage or antique or some kind of, it's had a life before.
Yeah.
Which is, I really like that because it means that every single piece is different and the range of costumey to classic, it spanned the whole range. And yeah, he had a lot of really, really nice pieces there. And it was really fun to just look through, and they were so patient with us. We were in there for a little while pointing to different ones, and they'd bring them out and clean them off and let us try it on. And he knew the story of everyone, and he could tell, he knew right away what the kind of stone it was. It was real pro, but also really casual and friendly and fun.
Yes, he definitely fancied himself an eccentric and was making jokes the whole time, and the lady was like, "Stop making jokes, they're just here to buy things, stop it."
But we liked the jokes.
It was a good bit. It was a 1-2 bit, and they certainly weren't pressuring us in any way at all. They probably were wondering or probably even thought that we were interested in buying a ring for this purpose, but at no point did they do anything that tried to move the product or anything.
Yeah.
And it was the end of the day on New Year's Eve. I mean, even at the end of it too, rather than them trying to get us to buy something that day, the woman was like, yeah, it's time. It's time for us to close
Yeah,
now. It was
she
like
was
7
like,
o'clock. And they were
I don't
like,
even think it was that late. I think they was like 5.
I don't know. They were ready to close.
They were ready to close. They wanted to celebrate New Year's. And and we were ready to go anyway. But yeah, it was totally. Normally, I feel like in that sort of instance, you would be like being sold.
Right.
And they were kind of, he was like telling us about the things he was showing us, but more of like an informative telling rather than like, oh, this one,
Yeah.
And that was funny. She was like, okay, I think you've seen enough.
Yeah.
Time to go.
Yeah. So we probably looked at like 6 to 8 rings or something like that.
Yeah.
And there were a couple that we liked, in particular this one. And then as soon as we left the store, Jesse was like, I think I want that one. But it was the most expensive one, so I don't know if that was okay. And I was like, no, if that's the one you want. And it was like, but the store's closed already. But so then we were like, well, when can we go back? I mean, we can't go back tomorrow. We took a special walk here to do next week. We're not even in the area. How are we gonna do this? So then we just spent like 4 or 5 days just thinking about it and like, oh gosh, I hope it's still there. I hope it's still. But there's
it's fine. Like if it had not been there, whatever, it would have been fine. But it's kind of like the same experience where people like, I remember like the first time I went and found an apartment, like I saw one that was really great, but then I waited too long and then it was gone. And it's like that kind of thing where when it's this one thing that exists, like this, especially with this type of store, it's not like, oh, it's a custom made that you see it and they'll have a bunch. It's like this one. It's the only one. So we were thinking about it. And then a couple of days later, we were like, how did we do? We were just like,
I don't think it was even a couple of days later. I think it was, we should go to other stores. And we did. We went to Sunset Park and we looked, there's a ton of jewelry stores in Sunset Park.
Yeah.
And we probably passed like 25 to 30 stores and we're not even inspired to go into one because it's a very cool area to walk through and there's a lot of jewelry, but like as far as the vibes of the stores, all of them felt kind of this same way where it was like, we're not seeing anything in the window we like. We don't really want to go in and like kind of, I don't know. It just seemed like kind of a haggling situation down there. Whether or not that was the case or not, it just none of them inspired us in any way.
Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, I don't really know enough about jewelry to like be able to even explain like what it was that was being sold down in Sunset Park. But what I was noticing was more just that it was like a lot of the same. Like I don't even know that it was new. Like some of it could have been used or vintage or something as well, but it just felt like every window felt the same to me. Like it felt like white background, gold jewelry, bright lights, organized case, like whereas this Shinies was like the display was like going to a museum or you're like looking and oh there's something and there's like this crazy display and everything's so different and there wasn't anything that I saw like that in Sunset Park. So none of the places really like grabbed us and pulled us in.
Yeah. So to your point, I believe we did reroute in order to go there in early January. And so we went there the 6th of January, I believe. And
that's right.
we were walking in the store that day and the older gentleman was there. As I said earlier, he's kind of an eccentric and we were like, hey, how are you? And he was like, oh, I'm celebrating our friends down in Georgia for doing the right thing and electing the 2 senators.
Right, because the night of January 5th, if probably a lot of people will remember this, we were pretty excited because there had been an election and 2 senators had won and we were all feeling pretty excited about that. And that was the news the morning of January 6th. It was the first thing that we saw when we woke up. And we were excited about it too. And jewelry store man was excited.
Yeah. We made the purchase. He was like, oh, you want the expensive one. Good. Which and we made the purchase, and we were happy. We were kind of just floating in on our whole, day.
Yeah.
And of course, it's already perked the ears of some people, obviously, but maybe not everyone, that also happened to be the day that the Capitol insurrection happened.
Right. So yeah, we were just like, neither of us were looking at our phones, and we were just walking around being all like cutesy with each other for like, yeah, probably until maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon when we
came
finally...
home. We made the route come home so that we wouldn't be carrying the ring around all day.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe it was 3 or 4. Either
Right.
way, it was kind of late in the afternoon when we finally came home and took a second and like checked in on things. And yeah, the whole world had gone topsy-turvy. Or,
Yeah.
The Capitol had gone topsy-turvy. This country had gone
was
topsy-turvy.
experiencing some weirdness.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that will always be indelibly marked to that particular day, which I'm okay with.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's just like the way that life is, how there can be one really crazy and upsetting thing happening in one part of your experience, and then there can be another really lovely thing happening in the other part of your experience, and you're tuned into one of them at some point, and you're tuned into another at another point, and it's all just like happening at once. And that's just what life is.
Yeah. So that was that, and we couldn't share that with anybody until now.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend anybody that wants to go jewelry shopping, not just for an engagement ring, but in general, if you've never had a nice experience doing something like that. I mean, they literally had pieces that were like, I don't know, just over $100 or probably even less.
Probably less too. I mean, you keep saying that like we picked the expensive one, and it wasn't like crazy. It wasn't like a down payment on a house or anything. It was expensive compared to what they had there.
Yeah.
But like, it was fine. Like, I'm not telling everyone how much it was, but like...
It was $80 million, everybody. Okay?
I don't know if it's going in our cost sheet, though. So.
No, it's not going in. You can't go to our website
It's not like actually part of the cost of the project.
No,
this is an extracurricular.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I'd recommend it. It's definitely accessible, and yeah, they have very nice things, and I get the feeling that they want to, price things at a fair price.
Right.
Like they're not trying to gouge anyone, but they're also carrying very nice items. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so go visit them if you like having a nice experience shopping in New York City.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Yeah. So that's that. We had the ring, and Jessie had a couple stipulations with respect to the proposal. She wanted me to get down on one knee, so she wanted it to be a surprise.
Well, yeah, I mean, we knew that we wanted to do this for a while. We've been talking about the idea of getting married for a significant amount of time, and it was like, we could either just be like, all right, I guess we're engaged now at some random day when we just happen to like be generally talking about it, or there could be like a moment in time that we can look at as like that was the moment, similar to like remembering getting the ring on a special day, like this was the special day, and like this is a little marker.
Right.
So yeah.
That was Jessie's request, which I was happy to honor. The other request was that I make the time to call up her father and ask for his blessing, which I did, and that was a very nice exchange that we had on the Monday of this week. And actually, there was a little funny modern communications-wise. I had been using earbuds prior, which were Bluetooth, and then I put them away, and then the first 2 times I tried to call him, they would go immediately to disconnect. And so, I'm trying to, make this thing happen. I wasn't really stressed about it in any way.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
like
have
once
a relationship, but it's like
once you decide to make the call, you want to make sure that just happens.
Yeah.
So the first 2 times it didn't go through, and then I just kind of thought to myself, I wonder if like the headset is playing, the Bluetooth headphones are playing any role in this. So I turned off Bluetooth, and then it immediately went through. And then at that point, Bill, my father-in-law
To be.
to be, answered the phone, as though he were taking a business call, because he doesn't have my phone number in his phone.
In the cell
And
phone.
it also said Northport, New York, which is not where I live. And it's not where I got the phone, but it's where my parents live. So there is this scenario where, like, maybe my parents are calling because something terrible has happened to either of us.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Hey, it's Mike." I didn't say Mike Varley. So he was a little disoriented by what was going on at first. But, ultimately I was like, "Hey, I just wanted to call, your daughter is very a forward-thinking, progressive lady, but she's also traditional in other ways. And so she asked that if ever we wanted to get married, that I take the time to give you a call and ask for your blessing." And so he was very touched. And, we had a 5-10 minute phone call, and that was very nice. And so the way was paved, but also the timer had now been set.
Yep.
There was now accountability at play here. And so I communicated to him that I was thinking of Wednesday or Thursday of this week to make it happen, depending on the weather and several factors. So, in January, we got the ring. So then Jesse was passively aware
I was passively aware.
that something could happen. Now, we had been talking about the engagement for longer, as Jesse mentioned. So I had kind of had a spot in mind based on the walks. I'm not even really sure. I need to look back at the evidence, but either sometime in July or October, whenever we were walking through Queens, it was a
Well, it would have
Queens
been
month.
either one of those. or
Yeah,
Queens,
it was a Queens month. I think maybe it was the end of July, but I'm not sure. I was walking, and I ended up going down a wrong path. As I was talking to Jessie on the phone, it was a studio day for her. And I ended up in like a Long Island Railroad depot, like where all the trains are. And there was no talking my way like through. They weren't going to let me do that. So I ended up finding myself near Willow Lake, which is a part of the Flushing Meadows Corona Park complex. It's the lowermost lake of that area there. And around the lake is the Willow Lake Preserve. I hope I'm getting that right. I'm pretty sure I'm getting it right. And whenever I was there, be it July or October, it was really nice. There were like monarch butterflies flying around, and it was very sunny, and lots of vegetation. It's a very reed-filled area, and the water's right there. And I just kind of had it in the back of my head that, like, oh, this is a place where it might be nice to propose to Jessie at. We're going to be seeing a lot of other areas. Maybe there'll be something else, but I'll just keep this in the back of my head. And of course, the months passed, and there wasn't any other area that I took a fancy to. So now we're approaching this week, and I decide, well, the days that Jessie is at the studio, I'll do some recon, and like see if this still makes sense. So on Monday, or I guess the same day that I spoke to Bill, I went to the preserve again, and it is now in a very different state than where it was when I was there previously, which is to say, dead, with a little bit of growth, finally starting to come in because we're, turning the corner to spring.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it was still a nice area, lots of solitude, hidden away. And I got to the place where I thought first it would be nice to do it, and it was like all muddy and watery because it's been, rainy and, springtime, and the reeds are all like smashed down, and I was like, oh, I might need to rethink this whole thing. And then I walked around the preserve a little more, and I found another spot which had this tree that's kind of like growing from the bank over the water, and there's reeds surrounding it on either side, and then you can look out to where the lake is, and it just felt very nice. And to add to that, after coming from one direction around the preserve, you leave out the other when going that direction, and there's a very long set of stone steps. and also some like wooden blocks and basically just things that allow you to stay above the muck.
It's like all swampy and marshy, and so it's like, yeah, like a board. There's like pallets and stuff too, like, and boards and logs, and really like cool. It was like a long trail. Yeah, and so you took me in through that long trail.
Ultimately, yes. And for those days that Jesse wasn't there, I spent a lot of time deliberating. Is this what I want to do? Because there's rain in the forecast. Is this place going to be flooded? There's trash around here. So I had to I spent a couple of days cleaning up trash around there. Just enough to make it stage the area a little bit. But yeah, there was an umbrella, like a dining umbrella that was there that I moved out of the way to make sure. There was also a kayak there too that was just there. It didn't have paddles.
Has that been there the whole week?
Yeah, it's been there the whole week.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Yeah, there, and so I basically just made sure that all the garbage bags and bottle caps and things like that were out of the area where things would be happening. But even then, I was still like, are we too close to the road? Is this gonna work? I don't know. But ultimately, I decided all right. This is location A, and we're gonna just go through the week and see how it went.
Yeah.
And
wait, was there a location B?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I'm not gonna tell you what that is.
Okay.
Maybe one day I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so curious now.
Yeah. I always gotta have a B.
Yeah.
So we Wednesday was the first potential day, and we walked down to the Botanic Gardens. We walked to the Brooklyn Gardens first, and we were having a really nice time. And I thought to myself, maybe I should have just brought the ring with me and had it there. But then I was like, no, stick with your plan, whatever, And then I thought, well, maybe because the way that this particular route works, we pass by our house or very close by. So I thought maybe it could pick up the ring and then do what I intended to that day. But then I found out that our friend Nina was going to join us on the walk.
Yeah.
And it just didn't. I was like, no, this is fine. Just stick with Thursday. This is fine. And so, yeah, Wednesday came and went, and we had a nice day. And, that was that. And then it leads to Thursday. That's today. And we get up. And Jesse immediately is not in a great mood.
I was just a little bit grumpy. I just had a tummy ache and I was tired and kind of sore.
I mean, she wasn't taking it out on me. It's fine. But it was already okay, great. Okay, we're going to have a nice day though. I mean, it is.
Yeah, no, you were being particularly nice to me.
Yeah.
Which was... It was funny. I mean, thinking about it now, I realized you were laughing at, not laughing at me, but I was oh, my tummy hurts or whatever. And you were okay. You were kind of laughing. And so I thought I was being funny. So I kind of leaned into the complaining a little bit because I thought you thought I was funny. But I think you were just okay, shut up.
Well, she, for instance, Jesse was tell me a story. Take my mind off things, basically. I was oh, all the birds are singing. They're singing hello to you. And you were the birds are dead or something. You were just try a new story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you were isn't it that it feels so clean after the rain? And I immediately pointed to some trash.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But I wasn't being
No.
I was fun. I think I was being funny.
Yes, but there are many days where I could just get angry at that, and then everything goes off the rails. So I had to be yeah, that's great.
Sure.
But ultimately, we did find some discussion. I think we just started talking about tipping.
Yeah, we talked about how waiters and waitresses could maybe have a better system for equal, fair payment every day kind of thing.
For a half hour, 45 minutes, which allowed Jesse to get out of whatever mind space that was in.
Great.
That was fine.
We went and got some food to take out, and I ate a little bit of my food, and then I carried the rest of it with me.
That's right. So
that added to it.
Well, yeah. I feel like you're jumping several steps ahead.
I'm jumping a few steps ahead.
Which, yeah. Look, if you're here for the whole story.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So I decided to take Jesse through Forest Hills. which we have walked through the neighborhood of Forest Hills, but not through the specific development that goes by the stadium to this point. And it's a beautiful area.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of Tutory houses, looks like real expensive, nice homes.
Yeah.
And Jesse, who of course is completely unaware of what is going on today, we get through that area, or start to go through that area, and she's like, "Oh, I have to take a phone call. Do you mind if I take a phone call?"
Yeah, which we'll talk about later because it was a phone call with a gardener from the Queen's Botanic Garden.
Of course, yeah.
So,
and I'm not going to
talk
say
about that phone call later.
No, don't take that phone call.
Yeah.
You need to pay attention to the things that are going on around you. So she's on the phone 10, 15, 20 minutes, and like we're about to get to the part of the walk that like I want her to see. So I just start taking right turns, and Jessie is unaware of what's going on. She's just still on the phone and enjoying herself. And then I am able to get her off the phone. And then as soon as she gets off the phone, she starts texting one of her workers to talk about like work stuff. And I was like, could you just maybe get off the phone? We're in this area that's new. And you were like, oh, okay.
No, you were right. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm missing the tutors.
Yeah. And then I realized like at some point she was going to start texting on her phone again. So I was like, you know what, just finish your message. And she was like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, just do it. I was like, don't lose it. Don't just, and yeah, so that was, you were able to look up from your phone after that.
Yeah.
And we saw that area, and like, that area around the stadium is just, it's really nice. They have that like kind of courtyardy area where the train tracks are.
Yeah.
And so at that point then Jessie wanted some food, which ended up being a really nice bookend to the engagement ring purchase, because we ended up meeting another eccentric old man.
Yeah. Do you remember the name of the place? I can look real quick.
Yeah. So Jessie wanted to get some food, and she saw a like meat and cheese
Yeah, I saw
store.
something that said artisan cheeses, and I was interested.
Yeah. So she went in there, and it's, like a store with like olives and different cheeses and like a bunch of different deli salads as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of an amalgamation of like the classic meat and cheese store with a deli vibe as well.
It was called Mr. Vino's Cucina.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we were in there, and I was asking him about, what does any of the food have gluten or wheat? And he heard gluten or meat. And then I had to explain, no, it's wheat. No, I can't eat wheat. I like meat. I'll take the meat. I don't want the wheat. And so we had this like funny, because like, whatever. It's always hard to understand me. And then also with the mask and whatnot. And so then he pointed out every single thing that I could possibly eat. And I picked, and he was scooping it up and was like, what is that on your head? What's the
because we were both wearing the hats.
We were both wearing the highly violet hats, and so I explained what we were doing, and Mike pulled out a sticker, and he was immediately like, wow, that's really cool. Oh my gosh. Wow, you must be having such a good time. This is such a great project. Like, he was so excited. And then he was like, I'm putting the sticker in the window. I'm going to tape it up, though, so that the window washer doesn't wash it off. I'll put it on the inside so that it stays safe. And he like put it right above like where it lists all the credit cards that can be used in the store. So
yeah.
Which it was just like so nice, and yeah, I think put both of us in a nice mood.
Yeah, no, it was great.
We were already in a fine mood, but it was like very cute.
Yeah, and Jessie, as she said, was very hungry and decided to order a pound worth of food. But so she got a bunch of German potato salad in a half-pound container, and then she had the eggplant. What is it?
Caponata or
No,
something.
look it up now
Oh,
if we've
okay.
already.
Caponata.
Yes, eggplant caponata.
Yeah.
So she was also getting a half pound of this, soupy, sweet eggplant, like ratatouille type thing. And I told the guy, I was like, no, she doesn't want that much. And Jessie's like, are you sure? And I was like, no, you don't want, look how much food that is. And so we asked him to take some out, and she still got like a significant portion.
Yeah. It was still probably a quarter pound.
Yeah. And so, of course, I went to a Boston market across the street to basically to use the restroom, but also to get like a small thing of mac and cheese. And then, as we normally do, we just eat outside because, it's the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I realized that like I'm not nervous, but I don't want to eat this and then do this. So like I have this, the Boston Market like has these discs for their dishes. So like I'm just kind of holding it, just like, you're not going to eat? And I'm like, I'm not really hungry yet. So I just like put it in my pocket. And then Jessie eats her German potato salad and is immediately like, I'm full now. I don't want any more food, and I'm cold. Why is it so cold today, Mike? I can't believe it's cold. And I'm like, oh God, I told you should wear. We should get we should get a warmer jacket. You should wear it, and so she's got now this eggplant thing that's like, it's like a softball. She's holding it, and it's inside a paper bag. And so she's carrying this, and I'm like...
It didn't fit in any of my pockets.
No, it didn't fit in any of the pockets. So she's just walking around, and for the rest of the day was carrying that, basically.
Yeah. I didn't mind. I mean, I wasn't uncomfortable.
No.
I was like, oh, well, I'll eat this later.
No, absolutely.
Probably want this in a few hours.
Yeah, but it does make for a funny accessory to be carrying around when you're about to be proposed to.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah. So from there, we went to the Willow Lake Preserve, which is only about 10 minutes away from that location. And we went down the step way, the stone slab way.
Mm-hmm.
And Jessie is immediately very happy. She says, very cool place. I was like, all right, this is good.
Was.
I mean, we're still dealing with an overcast sky situation. It was a little misty.
It was like drizzly, rainy earlier, yeah.
Not ideal conditions, but it was actually getting sunny, which I was very keen to note immediately. Like, oh, isn't this nice? Oh, all these things, very good. Yeah. I had told Jessie earlier in the day, I was like, we should wear boots too. And Jessie was like, why? And you kind of like stared at me. Like you seemed a little skeptical in the morning as to why you should wear boots.
I just thought it's not raining and...
Well, and then I was like, well, because we're going to the Botanic Gardens and, like up in the Queens Botanic Gardens, it's very like wet and slushy.
You said in Flushing Meadows. You said in Flushing Meadow, it's after it rains, I feel like it's going to be really puddly. And that totally like threw me off course because Flushing Meadows does get really like the other day there was like a whole, I'd say like a half mile that was flooded. Like it does get really wet.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I had thought this through. I thought all of it through. And so it was good because when we got to Willow Lake Preserve, of course, it was muddy because it had just rained.
Oh, yeah.
So that was not a problem at all. That was really one of two things that was really like potentially going to throw me off. Like if we got to a place where we had to walk through mud and Jessie was not satisfied with the fact that her shoes were all dirty. And then the other thing being, were there going to be people where this was going to happen? And fortunately, I mean, it already is a pretty solitary space, but fortunately, nobody came through for like 10 or 15 minutes until we had walked, continued our path along. Then we saw like a person or two.
We saw one person on the way in.
Yeah.
And I noticed you like kind of looking at him like just, I don't know, I guess you must have been like, oh man, is this guy gonna like walk this way? Like, I don't know what you were thinking, but I noticed you looking at him and then I got kind of scared because it was like, this was so isolated and like near the highway and like a preserve I'd never heard of before. I don't know. I was just, the further we got in, I was like, was that guy that Mike was looking at, like, is he going to come kill us or something? Like, I started thinking that a little bit, but it was still like, I was happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I didn't think he was going to follow us, but I was like, why are you here? Because it was just a man smoking a cigarette at like the top of the trail. Like it was very unusual for him to be out there.
He must have gone for a walk or something and then just been finishing his walk with a cigarette. I don't know.
But after that, we just walked down the path. It was kind of surreal because I knew it was happening. Jessie didn't know it was happening. And we were enjoying ourselves and we got to this place and Jessie had the reaction that I desired, which was that this is really nice and I'm enjoying that I was here. And I didn't really waste any time at that point. We took the opportunity to look and see the water, and then I took out a tea towel that Jessie had tie-dyed.
No, it's Brett's mom that tie-dyed that.
Oh, really?
That one in particular.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I did not know that. That makes sense, though. So yeah, our friend Brett's mother had dyed this, and he gave it to us as a gift for staying here, right? Yeah. And so I pulled it out, and Jessie was like, huh? What are you doing?
I thought he was going to, like, put it on the ground for us to sit on. And I was like, That's
No.
interesting
It wouldn't be
idea.
enough for one of us to sit on. And so I put it down on the ground, and then Jessie was like, "What?" And then I got down on one knee, and she was like, "Oh."
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's probably what it
And
looked
then,
like.
so I took out the ring box, and I said to Jessie that I want to spend the rest of our lives finding all the secret spots with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I asked if she would marry me. I explicitly said that to make sure that I was fulfilling all the
That
obligations.
it was clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Total
she-
clarity.
And that's right, total clarity. And then she said yes. And then that's that.
And that's the whole story. And then we got married.
We got married right there. I actually had an Elvis priest right there, and he did it right away.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Not.
I know that
strike
might be in the
from
realm of
record.
possibility,
Oh my
but
God,
that's not
it could
actually
be.
that's not actually
Strike that
happened.
from the record.
Yeah.
We did not. We just got engaged today.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that canoe, and I was like, "Are we gonna get on that canoe and paddle away, Mike?"
It's not an unreasonable
the
thing.
plan.
If there had been a paddle there for some reason, maybe we would have tooled
It
around
was
in it.
a little too cold still.
Yeah.
And that would have gotten a little too wet, probably.
Probably.
But like maybe it would have been nice.
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe another time.
And so I think that covers that
Yeah, that's
aspect
the
of the
whole
story.
So, well, we're excited.
We should probably
Good day.
I should probably do some video of the ring. I mean Jessie's been wearing
Oh
it,
yeah,
so
you might be able to see it.
but we'll do an inset because I'm sure people are very interested in that.
That seems to be a thing that people like to see.
We're happy with it. It's something.
I
that,
mean, yeah, we really talked up shinies. So.
yeah.
Okay, so that's that part of the story. The question that often comes after you say, "Oh, I got engaged," is, "Oh, do you know when you're going to have the wedding?" And so, yes, the answer is yes. We are going to get married on the final day of our walking project, which is June 20th, 2021.
Mhm.
And we started the project June 21st, 2020. So it marks 1 full year of walking. And at that point, it'll be 7,000 miles that we've walked together. And it's also a Sunday, and it's the summer solstice. So for us, all of those points are really important and exciting and feel like all these special parts of our lives coming together and merging, and it seems like the perfect day to merge into each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that there's like a lot of variables at play here. I mean, we still have to consider everything related to the pandemic and people's personal safety and people's personal comfort level.
Yeah.
It's also Father's Day that day, we've noticed, and we've
Yeah.
got a lot of friends that are first-time dads, and we
Mhm.
want to respect that. It's also the final day of the Masters for any golf fans out there. So,
didn't realize that.
yeah, so there's a
Wow.
lot of things going
There's
on
a
in the
lot
world.
of things going on
But
in the world.
for us, this is a day that feels really special because it feels like something that really ties together a lot of things. And it is the first day that really clicked for us whenever we talked about having a wedding and being married.
Yeah.
And so we want to pursue that. We want to honor that and have a great experience with whoever feels comfortable or interested in showing up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a very nice day.
So June 20th, that's basically your first idea of save the date.
Yeah.
We got a lot of other ideas for what that day is going to look like. Spoiler, not going to be conventional, but
Oh, who would have thought?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we do hope it's going to be something that's fun and simpler than a lot of other weddings in some ways.
Yeah.
And maybe more complicated in others, but definitely something that ideally will fit within our bandwidth of still walking 5 marathons a week
Right.
until the end of the season. So,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And now that this is part of our lives officially and formally and whatnot, I'm sure we'll talk about it maybe a couple more times on here. And yeah, stay tuned for that if that's something that, whoever happens to be listening or watching, if that's something that you want to hear about, then, you'll hear about it here.
That's right. You'll hear it here first. So let's move on to the project portion of our
Yes.
podcast.
Yeah, let's talk about our regular program. Let's get
That's
back
right.
to our regular
Let's talk
programming.
about something we talk about every 5 weeks, in fact.
Oh!
And that is our mileage report.
I love the mileage report.
She
I don't know
loves
if anyone
the
else
mileage
loves
report.
the mileage report, but I love the mileage report.
That's right.
This time Mike did the mileage report. I've been doing the research for it a lot lately. I think I did the last 3.
Yeah.
Because it's fun.
Yeah.
But this time Mike is going to do it.
That's right. We are going to some major cities this week, and it gets harder and harder each week to determine the mileage distance. We really got to get a little more liberal with what each week means in terms of mileage. So for those that are just seeing this for the first time, where you been? There's like 5 of these already.
There's a lot of them. I'll probably, in this segment, put a little card that you can go back to the prior one, because that's what I've done previously. So
Great.
if you want to hear them, just click that when it shows up.
The premise is to what city we could have gone to if we were walking all of this distance back to back to back to back.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So this is now weeks 36 through 40 of where we could have gone. These are all as the crow flies distances,
Right.
which means that if we could walk on air, where we could have gone to.
Yeah.
And so we have 3 South American locations and 2 European locations.
Ah,
Yeah.
all right, let's get there.
Week 36, we have walked 4,716 miles. Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Oh.
Yeah, which I think would be a fun place to visit.
I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. Week 37, 4,847 miles. Athens, Greece. So
That's
what?
where the marathon originated? No, that was in England with the Queen.
Okay, so Marathon, Greece is what it's named after.
Ah,
And I believe it was a run to Athens.
perfect.
The distance, not actually derived from that,
Right.
derived from the Olympics and London.
Gotcha.
That's what you're
I
referencing.
mashed up a couple things.
Yeah, but yeah, it's all good.
Related.
Yeah. But
Cool.
yeah, I didn't even think of that when I pulled that.
You were just looking for a big city.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I should say that is 4,921 miles away. And week 37 weeks would be 4,847 miles away. So we have to go a little bit further.
Okay.
But we've covered it, don't
Okay,
worry.
yes, we have.
And then similarly with Sao Paulo, it's a little bit longer, which it was 4,773 miles. We would have traveled 4,716 miles.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
for all the sticklers out there.
Yeah, it's close though.
Yeah. Now, we are going week 38. We are going 4,978 miles, so
Okay.
just under 5,000
Yeah.
through 38 weeks.
Okay.
And just over 5,000 at 5,011 miles, Istanbul, Turkey.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting really far.
Yeah, and that reminds me of that song. I don't know, is it? Oh boy, if it's not They Might Be Giants, I'm not sure who it is. But the song Istanbul or Constantinople,
Oh, uh-huh.
which references even old New York was once New Amsterdam. Do you know
That's
this
a
song at all?
line in the
yeah.
song?
Yeah. Istanbul or Constantinople, Istanbul.
Oh, yeah, I do know
Constantinople.
that song.
Yeah,
And it references New York?
it does.
Wow.
Even old New York was once New Amsterdam. Why they changed it, I can't say. Guess they liked it better that way.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway,
Was Istanbul once called Constantinople?
Constantinople, yeah, after Constantine.
Constantinople.
This is a very fact-filled mileage report this week. So we've got 1 South American, 2 European. We're going back to South America for the last 2.
Yeah.
Week 39, we have walked 5,109 miles
Okay.
and 5,125 miles
Okay.
from New York City, so just a little bit
Further.
further,
Yeah.
is
That's the game.
Santiago, Chile.
Oh, that's really far.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, the numbers are getting bigger, so of course it's getting further away.
Yeah.
Is that all the way down at the tip?
I believe it is lower, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's all the way at the tip, but it's the lower portion.
Wow.
Yeah. Another city that I would like to visit at some point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And coming in at week 40,
Uh-huh.
5,240 miles walked, 5,295 miles away. So again, a little bit over.
Sure, that's your thing.
That's my thing this week. Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Oh,
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. So this week, 5 big cities managed to find.
Those are 5 big cities.
Might even be, I don't know, we'd have to go back and see, but like might be if we had to choose a group of 5 cities to visit based on our mileage report,
Yeah.
which maybe, I don't know, maybe that'll happen sometime.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I might want to visit this chunk of 5 the most.
Well, this is a good chunk because they're all very recognizable, you know? I don't feel like I know really very much about any of those 5, but I've like certainly heard of them many
Right.
times, and they're probably places that have airports that we could easily fly into, and yeah, some of the other places that we've picked are really out there, like just not well known at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, which also would be fun.
Yeah.
But
One
Yeah.
one little note that I wanted to end on that I thought was really interesting. So I'm looking around trying to find different cities, and I'm finding some, and some are too short, some are too long, and I'll find one, and then I'll think, okay, well, I just need to look a little bit further west
mm-hmm.
in order to, or a little bit further east.
Yeah.
I mean, in this week, it so happened to be west.
Yeah.
And it turns out that that's not how the planet works,
Yeah.
which is really strange. So you pick one that's further west, but if it's further north, it ends up being less miles.
Yeah, it's really confusing.
So it was just funny to, like, I'm not sure, like I picked Athens, and then I wanted to go to Moscow, or there was some other city, I forget which
Yeah.
one it was, but then it was like considerably shorter, even though
Yeah.
it was further west.
Even just like when you're moving the dot, like when it's still actually walking directions and you just move it a little bit, which looks like it would maybe be 50 miles or something, sometimes it jumps like 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but like a few hundred.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's weird. It really throws me off.
Yeah.
I guess because the Earth is round.
Turns out. Yeah.
This is how you know for sure.
That's right.
The
I was
mileage
a
report.
flat earther before this, I gotta be honest.
Strike that from the record. Also not true.
That's right. I'm not a flat earther.
No.
But that's it. That's this week's mileage report.
Yeah, and we have one more thing to talk about.
Well, what's that?
Our walk this week.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure where she was going with that. But
Oh.
yes, of course, we have to talk about the thing that we typically talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. So we walked from our home to the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens and then up to the Queens Botanic Gardens every day this week.
Yeah, we called it Dueling Botanic Gardens.
That's right. And that's the title of this episode. And it was a lot of fun. I
Yeah, it really
enjoyed it.
was.
I think we learned a lot. We didn't really hit the peak.
No, we thought we would and we didn't.
No.
Which I think is you just can't predict these things. Like there's a
Well, we
general
tried
idea
because this
of-
is
yeah.
supposed to be the week.
Well, yeah, but like it's a sort of a general idea of like, yeah, everything should be blooming like end of March or early April is when it happens, the early spring. But like it's also dependent on all the weather patterns and all just like what the plants are feeling, or it's so dependent on so many things that
Yeah.
can't be perfectly predicted.
Yeah. One thing I would like to know is if all the winter snow we had this year perhaps impacted the timeline.
It's possible,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'd need to talk to a professional
I
about
should
that.
have asked the guy
Yeah.
that I talked to today.
Yeah.
I spoke to a person named Colin from the Queens Botanic Garden, and he was so helpful to explain how some of the plants worked and suggest things for us to see, and talked about, how Queen's Botanic Garden does their gardening, and he's a gardener there. So any sort of fact that I bring up from Queen's Botanic Garden probably came from him.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Queen's one first.
Okay.
So the Queen's one is, let's see, how do I describe the Queen's one? Well, it was formed from the World's Fair, for starters, the earlier one, right?
The first one.
Yeah,
the
1939-1940 World's Fair.
Yeah. And there's 2 big trees. I'm going to look at my notes because I don't want to say something wrong here. There were 2 blue atlas cedars in the very front when you walk in, right off of Main Street. And those were put there for the World's Fair in 1939.
Right.
And then the Botanic Garden sort of ended up being built in that same area after. So that's like around when they started planning for it. But then it was officially made into a garden just shortly after that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it, according to Colin, who Jesse talked to, his perspective on it was that it's a much more DIY botanic garden than its counterpart in Brooklyn.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that go into that. For one, the Queen's has just less gardeners, and each gardener has more acreage that they're in charge of. So each gardener at the Queen's Botanic Garden is in charge of 10 acres of the garden. And in charge of means curation of like what it's going to look like, and then tending to it and maintaining it. I didn't ask if they have, like, if each gardener has a team. I'm not sure exactly how that works out, but I really liked that portion of it, that the gardeners have curation control too, like that there's creative control over what it looks like. And it sounded like each season ends up being slightly different because of, what the gardener is thinking is appropriate for the next season. And but because 10 acres, so the difference at Brooklyn Botanic Garden, each gardener is in charge of 2 acres.
Yeah.
So what that ends up meaning at Queen's is that it's just a lot to cover for one person, I think. So there's these areas that are wild forest, which are really nice. It's not as dense as you might think a forest is, but there's lots of trees, and there's like sort of partially low grass, partially high wild, not super high, but like a couple inches, these like cute little like hairs of grass that stay like little, I don't know if I'm describing it well. It's hard to describe just like with words, but like these like small little like patches that sort of lift up. Like they look like little grass plants. They were cute. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Did you notice them?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, I noticed them out in that area. Out there's also like a composting area. It looked like some places where they had like a small farm.
Yeah.
I didn't see any animals, but some kind of like farming area. There was some beekeeping. It seemed like really like a lot of community involvement opportunities as well.
Yeah. I want to just continue a little bit of what you were saying about the structure because I found it really interesting. There's 10 acres per gardener at the Queen's Botanic Gardens, but then there's also kind of a director level structure as well, right?
So at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, there are directors in charge of each area. So like if you go to BBG, there's very clear like designated sections. So there's like the section over near the greenhouses, and then there's like the section where there's like the Japanese garden, and there's the section where there's the cherry blossoms, and and it's like very clearly marked. And so I guess each one of those sections has a director, and then under the director are gardeners. And so the director curates what it's going to look like,
Yeah.
and then sort of tells the gardeners what to do.
Yeah.
Whereas over at Queen's, it seems like there's not, and I hope I'm getting this right, because I'm also, we're playing a game of telephone, literally.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about this world going into it, so I hope I'm like catching it all right. But it sounds like then at Queen's, there's maybe no director, or maybe there's more of a collaborative effort, and then that's why the gardeners have like creative control as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just different. So it means that at Queen's, if you're working as a gardener in the same position, title, and like level, at Queen's you're in charge of curating what you're doing and then doing it.
Yeah.
And at Brooklyn you're being given a direction, like given a blueprint for where all the plants are to go and how many and whatnot, and then you just follow that and make it happen.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, because I didn't really consider how any of that would happen, but it makes sense. I mean, that's just a lot of there's a lot of design that goes into planting all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was really cool about the Queen's Botanical Garden is that it's really important to them to do everything like naturally and organically. And so they don't use pesticides or chemicals, and which also contributes to sort of the more wild feel, because the plants there might be a few more weeds here and there. And the rose bushes, for example, Colin was saying that the past couple of weeks he's been trimming those back, and I asked, what does that do? Like, why do you do that? Apparently rose bushes are really prone to all sorts of like diseases and infections. They're 10,000 years old. The cultivation of roses stretches back that far. It comes from Asia, East Asia in particular, and China mostly. And then because it's something that's been done for so long, the practices of cultivation are pretty well figured out without using chemicals or pesticides. There's like very clear, like if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen, kind of thing. And so one thing that you can do to keep them healthy is that over the winter, a lot of like the diseases that would get into roses sort of like set in, and because they're not blooming, it like grows in one place, I think is what he was saying. And so before it starts to bloom, you can trim back the plant, and it gets back to the point where it's like healthiest, and then the blooms come from that healthy spot.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that rose bushes generally always look kind of brambly.
Maybe.
You know, they always seem kind of nude, except for where the roses themselves are.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that was interesting to learn about from him.
Yeah.
As far as the space itself, we happen to be going there every day for free, except for the last day, because I don't know when it starts, but it ends March 31st. The park is free.
Yeah. I think it was for the whole winter season, and then, plus a couple weeks, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So on April 1st, we paid $6 each to get in, and which was, very reasonable.
Yeah.
This is kind of similar to last week in that we spent less time in the area than we might have otherwise because we need to keep walking. Much like last week with the museums, we just needed to keep walking.
Right.
So
I think with the Botanic Gardens, especially because we were sort of pre-peak bloom, we weren't stopping as much. Like, we were enjoying it and looking around, but there wasn't as much, like in the museums where like each painting is very clearly framed. With the Botanic Gardens, you're more like in an environment. So we were still probably moving faster through there. But once you've like looped it a couple times, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
time to go.
Yeah. So our last day there, the first payday, was comparatively empty to the other days that we were there. I think the environment would probably be the same, but I'm not 100% certain. It felt very local community oriented. Didn't feel like there was a lot of destination travel to the area. So because it's near Flushing, there was a high percentage of older Asian adults that were there enjoying the space. A lot of Tai Chi and other movement exercises happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect place to do that. You know, it's beautiful. It was pretty quiet. Even, I mean, you said today was more empty compared to other days, but the other day, like at no point did it feel crowded, which its neighbor, Flushing Park, often feels crowded.
Yeah.
So this is like this really nice, quiet space, which, it makes sense to go and walk and do movement.
Yeah. And Colin was suggesting that he felt there was a very active community participation in the space.
Yeah, he did. He said that a lot of, like on volunteer days, a lot of people come out, and a lot of people from the neighborhood or the community, surrounding community, are involved and, you know, are there frequently and just involved in general in like what's going on and checking in and seeing the plants and learning about the plants and whatnot.
Yeah. And, Jesse started talking about some of the features of the park. We had the 2 trees that were there from the World's Fair start.
Oh, yeah.
There's also a tree there that is one of a dying breed. I don't know if I can't even really say. Yeah.
He called it extinct.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because obviously we saw it and it's alive. And like when you think of like, you know, you would never call an animal extinct, even if there's only one left in a zoo somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's like interesting to use that terminology, but I trust that that's right.
Yeah.
And it's called the Franklinia altahama.
Yeah.
I don't trust that I'm saying that correctly. It is a tree that was found growing in Georgia by someone named John Bartram, who seems to be like a pretty well-known tree person. I don't know what the correct term for what he, you know,
what
he
if
does.
Botanist would be correct
Botanist
in this point.
maybe is correct, yeah, but someone from the past that was really involved in plants, something to do with plants. Anyone of our friends or anyone that doesn't know us that wants to correct me on my terminology, feel free. But so he brought a clipping of this back up north, and the clippings of the tree sort of got passed around. And so there's a handful of places that have one of these trees.
Yeah.
And Queens Botanic Garden is one of those places.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we tried our best to find what we thought was the tree.
I think we found it.
There are for whatever reason, some of the trees were tagged with what they are, and some of them weren't. And so we found, our instructions given were, look for the tree that looks dead. Don't worry, it's sleeping.
Yeah, basically. Well, it was, look for the perennial garden. Look across in that area. There's a really blooming yellow floral tree. And then right across from that is this tree that looks dead. But yes, don't worry, it's just sleeping. I guess it's it's still in the winter season and soon it'll sort of bloom again.
Yeah. So there was one tree that looked dead. And then we looked for the tree online, and it seemed like the tree online was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So then we looked again and saw another tree that looked dead.
Yeah.
And
that looked like more dead. Well, the first tree that we found that we thought looked dead, we were like, I guess that looks dead, trying.
Yeah, and then we saw this other one, and we were like, that looks dead too. So I'm going to show you the video of what we think it is.
Yeah.
You know,
I should probably send it. Maybe we can send it to Colin and get confirmation too later.
maybe.
But that'll be after. So
Yeah.
whatever. Maybe there will be a note. Maybe we'll mention it, or
We'll
see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
we'll see. You'll see. Future you knows more than present me.
right.
So, but yeah, we did a little sleuthing, and this is the best we came up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we saw the extinct tree.
Yeah.
But I mean, regardless of whether we actually saw the extinct tree or not, maybe we'll go back if it was the wrong tree. Maybe we'll go back for the extinct tree. But I just think that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that Queens is repping some extinct trees up there.
Yeah.
And so in addition to that, they have this, they have a fragrance path, which was nice to walk through. I could smell a little bit, but not everything.
Yeah.
Jessie can't smell anything for reasons that she doesn't have a sense of smell.
Yeah. I did try.
Yeah.
Nothing got in.
Yeah. And there were flowers there. I mean,
yeah, it was pretty. The fragrant path was the most bloomed
yeah.
of the areas.
Yeah, in the Queen's Garden, that's for sure.
There was also one cherry tree in bloom.
Yeah.
In Queens.
Which we went and checked out.
Or two. There were two.
There was a couple of them there. Yeah. And so we got some footage of that. I don't know if we'll be back to the Queens one anytime soon, just because I don't think it intersects with anything.
Yeah, and it's a little bit, I mean, just in general, it's pretty far. Like, it's 9 miles, I think, from our house.
Something like that.
So, which, I mean, of course, that's fine for us to walk.
Yeah.
But to like add it to a day would probably make any of our mileage go over.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that maybe on the stadium walk we'll go by, if it makes sense.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
highly recommended, though.
Yeah, it was great. I would definitely go back again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, what else is there? There's a wedding garden area, which it seems like it's currently off limits.
It looked like someone was actually working in there today.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if the door was just closed because they were working or if it was like maybe they only open it for weddings. I'm not sure on that.
Yeah. And then go on. What were you going to say?
Well, this is kind of a tangent, a little bit.
We'll find out.
But we left a penguin there.
That's what I was going to say. Go on. I'm going to find the name of what the whole story.
Okay. So about the beginning of the week.
Yeah. Sunday.
Yeah.
Saturday. This particular week we walked Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
That's right. So on Saturday, the first day of this week's walk, we were on our way home from the Queens Botanic Garden. We had done Brooklyn first, went out to Queens, and then came home. And we were walking through Middle Village, and for some reason, we just stopped on the sidewalk. I don't know if we had to stretch or something. And there was this little penguin on someone's, like the half wall kind of thing that's in front of some people's houses. And Mike picked it up, and I was like, why are you picking, like, it was so weird that you picked up this penguin and, like, inspected it. But, I mean, it was fine, it was good. But, like, it was surprising because you're not often, like, picking up things from the sidewalk, especially looked like a toy. It looked like a child's toy.
It was more or less at the level of my hand.
Yeah.
And also, I wasn't sure if it was plastic or a rock. I was just curious.
Yeah, you were curious if it was plastic or a rock. Turned out it was a rock, and when you picked it up, it had like a little note on the bottom.
Yes. It said, if found, please take a photo and post in Facebook group Queens, New York Hope Rocks. Keep or rehide.
Yeah, and so we took it and we rehid it, and we hid it in the Botanic Garden in Queens.
That's right. And not only that, we took a picture of it with Jessie's ring.
Yeah.
We ended up putting it on the penguin as though it were a tiara.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Yeah. And so...
But we didn't hide, like, okay, when it's a little bit confusing that it says please hide, because I don't think anyone would find it if you like actually hid it, you know? Like
Right.
you want it to be viewable.
Right.
So we didn't actually hide. We just like put it somewhere where someone else would find it easily.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so, tomorrow or whenever, I'm going to post on the Facebook group and let people know the story of what we're doing and how we found it. And it was, I've already been on the page and I actually saw there's like a history of this rock. There's the day that it was painted by somebody in the group. Then there's another message on the Facebook group saying that, oh, I hit all the rocks in Middle Village.
Yeah.
And that was like one day prior, so we found it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it was nice because Jessie, again, didn't know what this day held for us. And she brought it along. She saw. So it was kind of like a nice thing that she could contribute to the day. So when she found out, then it was, good.
Yeah. Yeah, you had kind of forgotten about it, and I put it in my pocket this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was nice to know. I wish we had brought this up in the segment when we were talking about the engagement, but it's also, we're on Thursday, April 1st.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's April Fool's Day.
Yes. So the proposal happened on April Fool's.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make up that if you wish.
That's right. So I think that's it for the Queen's Garden.
Yeah, well, let me consult my note real quick and just make sure we're not leaving anything really exciting out. Oh, we are.
Okay.
So the Queen's Botanic Garden is similar to, I think we've mentioned this about Flushing Meadows in the past, but it's built on a coal ash dump, which is the same coal ash dump that's referred to in The Great Gatsby.
Mm-hmm.
And coal ash has a lot of lime in it, which is a alkaline that creates alkaline soil.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the plants that thrive in the Northeast thrive in acidic soil.
Mm-hmm.
And so that presents an interesting challenge for the gardeners at the Botanic Garden, where they either have to try to slightly modify the soil with sulfur, which Colin said occasionally they'll do that, but more often they actually have to search for plants that thrive in an alkaline environment, or hope that the plants that they plant will adapt, or maybe coax them to adapt from acidic preference to alkaline preference.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, yeah.
I mean, you can change plants so much.
Right.
So I'm sure that's a compelling experiment for them to run.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's Queens.
That's Queens.
Let's go to Brooklyn.
Let's go to Brooklyn, okay.
Brooklyn Botanic Gardens is great also for a lot of reasons. One of them is that it's comparatively close to our home.
That is a draw. Yeah. And we got a membership.
Yeah, we ended up getting a dual membership because it was more affordable than paying for admission for this week.
Right.
And I think it's going to be one that we're going to be walking to both past this project, but also as our goal is to reach 7,000 miles, we do have some extra mileage we need to do in order to get there. So we'll probably be walking there, which is an hour.
Right.
And that's about 3 miles. Walking around for maybe an hour and then walking home.
Totally.
And that's, a solid 8 to 10 miles.
Right. Especially because we did end up going to these gardens slightly pre-bloom.
Right.
So we're probably going to want to go back and see it in full bloom.
Yeah.
And definitely want to see the cherry blossoms. And also in May, we're going to be back in Brooklyn for the whole month. And so we might even just on our walks want to pop in and see what's popping.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But what did we think of the garden?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Similarly to what we said about the Queen's Garden, not everything is in full swing yet.
Mm-hmm.
There were some areas that were more advanced, including the Magnolia area.
Right.
Which had some...
That was nice.
Yeah, it had some magnolia trees blooming which are there's something like millions of years old. Wasn't it like 125 million years old, something like that?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? It's basically like a tree of another era entirely. And there were some, I think, no, maybe it was all magnolias in there, but there were some pink ones that
Yeah,
made
I think
me
they were
think
just different color magnolias.
Yeah, yeah. And so in a couple of weeks, I think those must get earlier than the cherry blossoms, or at least
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah. And the daffodils were blooming
Mm-hmm.
in both gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a couple little flowers here and there.
Mm-hmm.
There were also these massive greenhouses at the Brooklyn Garden where you couldn't go into them right now, I think because of COVID, but maybe I don't know if you can ever go into them.
I believe you can, but
Okay.
It's been a while since I'd been to
Yeah.
the gardens. Jesse had never been,
Yeah, I'd never been there.
and it's been a long time for me, 7 or 8 years
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I, for a long time, thought that the Brooklyn Botanic Garden was just in Prospect Park somewhere. So I had a couple times, should I even be saying this?
No.
A couple times I wanted to go see the cherry trees,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to Prospect Park and walked around for quite some time looking for the cherry trees and just didn't, found a lot of other pretty things, but never found the Botanic Garden, and then just would go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad to realize now that it's a separate thing.
Yeah.
And to have a membership so I can go see the cherry trees.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were we saying?
The greenhouses,
greenhouses.
They look very cool. There's different biomes in each one.
Yeah.
Like a desert one and a tropical one.
Right. And because they're greenhouses, they're completely glass.
Yeah.
So you can see in.
Yeah.
Even if you can't go in, you can peek in and see everything.
Yeah. And so that's cool. There are more distinct sections there than in the Queens one.
Yeah. Yeah. The Queens one has distinct sections as well. But in the Brooklyn one, it feels like they're really fully separate. You go down a little path and make a turn, and then you're in this area.
Yeah.
And then you leave, you physically leave it. Whereas at Queens, you're sort of here's a bed to your right that is where all of this thing is. And then maybe over here, there's another area, but it's all kind of eye level.
Yeah.
And then, in the Brooklyn one, you're really it feels like you're exploring.
Yeah. Yeah, it also feels like there is more intention behind the different acreage, which makes it sound like that the Queens one somehow is unintentioned. I don't know. There's just a lot more kind of what appears to be wild growth in Queens. It's not wild.
Which I think is intention.
Yeah.
But I would say the Brooklyn one is just is fully manicured.
Yeah.
Whereas in Queens, part of what they do is let certain areas be more forest and slightly more natural and probably less manicured.
Well, in the Queens one, for instance, I don't know if this is all year round, but certainly for the part that we were there was a lot of water in a lower spot. Because that's, I guess, naturally what would be happening.
Sure.
And there's nothing like that at Brooklyn. I imagine that would be, manicured out of the experience.
Someone would probably come with a...
Well, they probably just put more earth there. And Yeah. I don't know what the solution would be, but there would definitely be a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the Brooklyn Botanic Garden definitely feels more corporate.
There's more money in these surrounding areas.
Yeah, and in the garden itself. It's getting more money from whoever funds the gardens.
Yeah. It's right next to the Brooklyn Museum. It's right next to Prospect Park.
Yeah. It's also, I think the ticket cost for the Brooklyn Botanic Garden is $18 a person, whereas it's $6 at Queens.
Right. Yeah. So that is reflected in the degree of polish to all the acreage that's there, I think. And in addition to that, there's a kind of a wooded area, like natural plant wooded area as well. That's
Mhm.
more like foresty. There is a significant rose garden area. Nothing
Right.
is.
Nothing was blooming, but oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like so many different species
Yeah.
or types of roses,
Yeah. They all
and
have funny
they all have
names.
different names.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were like over 100
Oh, more than that.
species more.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many, but definitely over 100 based on how packed they were.
Yeah.
There was a sign somewhere that probably said how many there were, but
There was a sign when we first walked in, and I read it out loud to you, and I don't remember what it said.
it was definitely more than 100.
Yeah.
But there's that area, and then there is another like upper garden area that has like a grass, and then I believe just shrubbery on either side, and there's a fountain that it culminates in,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what the flower angle is there, or if there is one, but it's not a lot is blooming there right now.
Right.
But that was a nice area as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there is the cherry tree area,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, I don't know how many trees there are there, but
Yeah, I don't know either. I'd guess
I would
50.
100, 120 would be my guess. You can pause the video when we show the actual footage of it, and you can count it yourself if you want.
Yeah.
But right now, there's only like one tree.
And it's like off on its own. It's weird. There's
Yeah.
like these rows of trees, and then none of them are blooming at all.
Yeah.
And then over to the side, like kind of out of the way, there's one that's blooming.
Yeah.
That's weird. It makes me wonder, like, if it's because it's over there that it's blooming, or is it a different type, and that's why, or like,
Yeah.
or is it blue, or yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But so that's there right now. It's still a very cool sight to see.
It is.
Especially there's a walkway above it, or there's a walkway on one side of it that you can go up and then kind of get a higher angle view on. And the walkway itself has plantings all up. It's kind of like a hairpin.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a nice thing to walk up. And in addition, right now, there is a sound installation that was there, I guess, last year, and it's being reprised.
Right.
If the sign is just to be believed. It's called Loved, and it was composed by Michael Gordon, and the percussionist on it is David Cosson, and it is it's bells. It's a percussionist of bells. I'm not sure what
Exactly.
type of bells it is.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the notes while I'm
I know.
reading it, but the first day that we got there, we came in, it plays on the hour. And actually, probably some people that if it's been here for a whole year, and if it was here during the pandemic, it's probably something that was fairly well known, I would think,
Yeah, because probably going to the garden is like,
But we were not aware of it.
no.
And so we got there right at 11. So like as we were reading the sign, I was ready for, I think I was like one sentence ahead of Jesse maybe on the sign, but I was ready for it. And then it is really impactful. I guess maybe we'll put a section in of the volume right here. And yeah, I don't know how well the GoPro picked it up or not, but it really makes people change. It changes the whole atmosphere of the space. And that's without, pink and white petals everywhere. And I'm excited to come back and see how it looks when there are enough people there. I don't know if I'm just interested. For the amount of people that were there, and the amount of people that were there on each day kind of fluctuated.
Mm-hmm.
Some days there weren't a lot of people, other days there were a lot of people. It was very a peace-inducing effect.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was nice. I mean, it's bells. I mean, it's like these bells that are sort of drawn out, long sound, and yeah, I'm also excited to see what it
Yeah.
sounds like while looking at the cherry trees, because now you're sort of like looking at empty branches in a long row, which is still kind of nice, but it's not like
Yeah.
beautiful. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would say it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I guess I will make one small clarification. This is a reprise of a previous installation. I guess it doesn't explicitly say in the marker if it was last year.
Oh,
So it may
right.
have been a previous year that wasn't
It could have
last
been
year. I don't know for
anytime.
sure.
Yeah,
I don't know for
that's
sure.
a good point.
Nevertheless, it is pretty impactful. We also got some for the 360 video, which I think we got for the 360 video. We got the Queens Botanic Gardens as well as the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, and I think it's pretty interesting to see what these spaces look like when they're not in bloom. So
I think so too.
I'm glad
yeah.
we got the footage from that,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm looking forward to going back again and seeing it while it's like flush with flowers.
Yeah. On that same note of the sound installation,
Yeah.
there's also a nice guided tour
Right.
called Meander,
Yeah.
which was made by Gelsey and Joe, and I just pulled up so I make sure to get their last names. It's Joe White and Gelsey Bell.
Yeah.
And it's about a 20-minute walk just to get you situated in the garden.
Yeah.
And it's really nice, and we've actually been in touch with them, and they're both like very pleasant, nice, open to talking people.
Yeah.
Who have done some other sound installations and sound walks and other, work with sound and music. And I would recommend that as well. It's very calming, and it is a guided walk, but it only guides you to like a small portion, and they explain what you're seeing, and they sort of give you. It's less of like an educational walk where they're explaining like the history of the plants or like what exactly the plants are, and it's more of like a guiding you into the place in your mind and body where you should be to best experience the plant life, is how I would describe it. Like it's putting you in sort of like a calm and meditative state so that you can focus on the garden and not be distracted by whatever it is that you were doing in like the hustle and bustle of Grand Army Plaza before you walked in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really great. And obviously we support any art that involves walking.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And we were excited to connect with them and and just share the love of the walking.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one other area of the park that I wanted to call out because it was maybe my favorite part to walk around, and that is the, I guess, Japanese-inspired pond area.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, if you're looking down at the cherry tree portion off to the left. And it is, it was just a fun little space to walk around. Lots of turtles there.
Mm-hmm. Lots of turtles there. Lots of trees that sort of like bend low over the water. There's a little like walkway area, little like covered walk that you can go out onto the pond and look over and then go back and walk around. It's just like very quiet and peaceful, and another area that just felt very like enclosed.
Yeah, and transports you to a different space of mind.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily say like I feel like I'm in a different country. Just kind of like it just feels like a different atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like, the way that you enter it and exit it makes it feel self-contained.
Right. Yeah, I think there's something about that, like, because in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, there were areas that were really wide open,
Yeah.
and I think I noticed it, like, I noticed it in myself, certainly, but I also noticed it in the other people around. Like, there were a lot of kids one day, and in the area near the cherry trees, they were like running up and down the central. There's like, it's like a perfect spot to run because there's this like runway
Right.
like between the trees, and they were using it and like yelling and, you know, even when the bells were going, you know, the kids are like, what's that? Like,
Right.
and then in the Japanese garden area, there were some kids there too, and you could see they're sort of like getting low and like looking at things and exploring, and like, yeah, it's cool because it creates this, even for like a little person that doesn't know proper like behavior yet, maybe,
Yeah.
or isn't aware of it. It still like creates this environment where I think everyone is affected by it equally. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm supposed to be quiet and sort of like appreciate what I'm seeing in here and not just like yell.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to see the power that plants and people teamed up together with intention and design and natural ability to create visual context can have an impact on people that are passing through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we named this walk the Dueling Botanic Gardens, but I don't think one of them wins over the other.
No, it's like dueling banjos. That's why I called it that way.
Oh, I thought it was like I challenge you to a duel.
Well, yeah. Nobody loses in dueling banjos.
Right. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I do think they really complement each other.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know how to start comparing them as like in that way of like this one's better than the other, because I really think they're just so different.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we have both of them in the city.
Yeah.
And it's not even all the botanic gardens, because the biggest one, I think, the one that's like the most well known, and I believe is actually like physically the biggest, is in the Bronx. And we're going to be going there.
New York Botanic Gardens.
It is called the New York Botanic Gardens. It's not even called the Bronx Botanic Gardens. Yeah. So we're going to be there in 2 weeks. And
that's right.
you can hear what we have to say about that.
Yes,
then.
Which is a great segue to say, starting next week, we will be tackling the 5th borough for this project. Yeah. The first borough in many people's hearts. The 5th borough for this project. Yes. The Bronx. Yeah. We will be, quote unquote, moving up there for a month, staying at 4 different places over the course of 4 weeks, one of the last frontiers of this year-long project.
Yeah.
We're very excited about it, and it's going to be almost transporting us back to where we were a number of months ago when we weren't doing themes, we were just experiencing neighborhoods.
Right, yeah. Yeah, because this will be, we kind of have it themed as well, sort of, but less so than it's been lately.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so that's next week. We hope that you join us.
Yeah.
We thank you for following along, as always. If you like this video, if you like listening to this, please consider hitting subscribe, giving this video a like, sharing it with your friends, all that. We enjoy making this content, and we want to share it with as many people as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, until next time, take care.
Bye.
Bye.